Hey there, AP Econ students. Happy Tuesday. Picture of the day comes from a poor hapless soul who's attempting to get some raise. Unfortunately, he's doing so in violation of the strict quarantine of the beaches of Italy, and he's about to get busted. Dude, I say if you're going to take that big of a risk, you might as well take the pants off too. Really? Just the shirt? This meme has kind of exploded on the internet due to the fact it could really be symbolic of so many things. For instance, this could be me. This could be my life's regrets, right? Sneaking up on you, especially now. Or maybe this is you and your cats at 3 a.m. All right, when you least expect it, you're just trying to chill in your quarantine, and that's what you get. So you can hide, but you can't escape. All right, quick review from yesterday. We talked about the marginal propensity to consume, which is the change in consumption over change in income. The marginal propensity to save, which is the change in savings over the change in income. They must add up to 1. So you save a fraction of each new dollar you earn or are given, and you spend the remainder. The multiplier then that we will use for spending, all new spending across the economy, is going to be 1 over the marginal propensity to save. The larger your savings, right, the lower the multiplier. The smaller the savings, the higher the multiplier. And then if you're looking for kind of the total change, the maximum change in aggregate demand or GDP from new spending, you would take the change in spending, for instance, the government spending in stimulus, times the multiplier. So you have to spend less than what you would say is the total gap, or cut spending by less than is the total gap in the if it were an inflationary gap to get the required or desired change in GDP. All right, let's practice a little bit with a model. Pause the video here and sketch out this model. So we have real GDP on the x-axis and price level on the y-axis. Aggregate demand, right, downward sloping, which is C plus I plus G plus net exports. We have a short run aggregate supply curve, upward sloping thanks to sticky wages. Where the economy is currently producing, I'm going to call Y star, okay? This will be PL star, the current price level. This vertical line is our long run aggregate supply curve, which represents full employment. So looking at this, you should be thinking about what kind of gap is present in this economy and what we want to do to stabilize the economy. All right, that's right. When Y star is greater than YFE, that is an inflationary gap. So we are trying to reduce aggregate demand by cutting spending and or raising taxes in order to lower the price level and restore full employment level of output. All right, so we could do that by increasing government spending. By decreasing government spending. We could also do it by raising taxes. So today's lesson is how the tax multiplier is a little different than the spending multiplier. So it has less of an impact on GDP or aggregate demand than pure government spending. So if you're looking for expansionary policy, so you're going to lower the tax revenue. If the MPC is 0.75, the spending multiplier is going to be 1 over, now, not the MPC, that's a marginal propensity to consume. We need the MPS. So 1 over the MPS, which in this case is 0.25. So the spending multiplier would be 4. But if the government cuts taxes by 4 million, we're not actually going to get 16 million, right? Which we would think we would because your multiplier is 4 and you have a tax cut of 4. But the problem is consumers are going to save the first million of that 4 million, according to the marginal propensity to save. They will only spend 3 million. So you don't get $16 million of aggregate demand change. You get $12 million, okay, because of that initial savings. So guys, don't worry. This is actually really simple. The spending multiplier is 1 over the MPS. The tax multiplier is the spending multiplier minus 1. Now, the official econ textbook formula for the tax multiplier is the MPC over the MPS. But trust me when I tell you, spending multiplier minus 1 is easier. So if the spending multiplier is 4, the tax multiplier is 3, as in the case we just saw. If the spending multiplier is 10, the tax multiplier is 9. Okay? So just take the multiplier and subtract 1. Now, MPC over MPS will give you the same thing. So in the example I just did, if the marginal propensity to consume is 0.9 and the MPS is 0.1, right? You could do the MPC over MPS, which would be 0.9 over 0.1, which is 9. Or you could do the spending multiplier minus 1. The spending multiplier would be 1 over 0.1, because that's your MPS. So the spending multiplier would be 10, but the tax multiplier would be 1. Now the cool thing about this is it allows the government to enact expansionary policy without actually busting their budget wide open. So follow this example. It says, what is the effect on the federal budget if the government spends $100 billion more or takes in $100 billion less in taxes? Guys, there's no difference between those two. If they spend $100 billion more, then they run a deficit of $100 billion. Assume they start with a balanced budget. If they take in $100 billion less in taxes or implement a tax cut of $100 billion, they still have a deficit of $100 billion. But guys, there will be different effects on GDP or aggregate demand based on those two scenarios. If we stick with, let's do an MPS of 0.25. That's an easy one, right? So that means your spending multiplier will be 4. But your tax multiplier is only going to be 3, because people are going to take the first 25% of the tax cut and save it. So you would actually get more stimulus from $100 billion in government spending than you would from an equal amount of a tax cut. So in terms of preserving your budget, you're better off using government spending because the entirety of that fiscal stimulus will be injected into the economy immediately. If you cut taxes, you're going to lose that first % as the marginal propensity to save. And the higher that is, the more you're going to lose. So if people have a marginal propensity to save of 0.5, they save half of all their new income, you would need twice as big of a tax cut to get the same amount of growth or stimulus than you would if you were changing government spending. All right, let's finish with an example here. So, check out this, pause the video for a second, identify the gap that we're looking at, and see if you can come up with the two possibilities for closing the gap in terms of government spending or taxes. Okay, so full employment output is $100 billion. The economy is currently producing $80 billion, right? So we have a recessionary gap of $20 billion. Okay, we have a marginal propensity to consume of 0.5. So let's get our multipliers straight away. Our spending multiplier is 1, again, over MPS, but MPC is 0.5, that means MPS is 0.5. So 1 over 0.5, which is 2. That is our spending multiplier. But our tax multiplier is going to be 2 minus 1. So there really isn't going to be a multiplier effect because people will save half, right? They're going to save half. They're going to consume with half and save half of any tax cut. So if you want to increase government spending, you would increase government spending by $10 billion, and that multiplied by 2 would get you $20 billion of increased GDP, or aggregate demand, consumer spending. If you cut taxes, you have to cut them $20 billion, because half of it, $10 billion, will go right in the bank, and then you could apply, again, that $2 million multiplier to the rest. But the easiest thing to do, guys, is just take the tax cut multiplied by the tax multiplier. Here, the multiplier is 1, so you need a full $20 billion of tax cut to get $20 billion of increased consumer spending. We'll do a little more practice with that in the last video. A little bit of a review, guys. The automatic and non-discretionary policy. Automatic stabilizers, okay, are mechanisms that are already in place to help stabilize an economy when it's headed into recession or headed for an inflationary gap. So you can fill in these blanks here. This is page 21, I think, of your note packet. But, you know, just common sense. When GDP is down, so you're headed into a recession, people will fall through the tax brackets because of the progressive income tax. So essentially it's like getting a tax cut, which will increase aggregate demand a little bit and help stabilize the economy in the face of a recession. Alternatively, when GDP is growing, income's growing, consumers will pay a greater percentage of tax, which will slow down consumption, which will hopefully decrease aggregate demand a little bit and keep inflation from rising too quickly. So on the tax side, again, going into recession, you kind of get an automatic tax cut. Going into inflationary times, you get automatic tax increase. In terms of government spending, the other tool of fiscal policy, when GDP is down, more people will automatically qualify for transfer payments. So government spending is going to tick up no matter what. And that will increase aggregate demand and help, again, prevent the recession, hopefully, from deepening or growing too quickly. Alternatively, if GDP is up, fewer people need or qualify for welfare, unemployment benefits, food stamps, and so forth. So automatically, government spending will fall, which, again, acts like a contractionary force on the economy, decreasing aggregate demand. The more progressive your tax system is, the more of an effect these automatic stabilizers will have. Last point here, guys, you have to be able to respond to recessions, and sometimes waiting for Congress and the President to act is not necessarily going to get it done. So these automatic stabilizers, you have to have a system in place to help stabilize things before they progress too quickly. So automatically the government budget's going to go into deficit during recessionary times, even without discretionary fiscal policy. And automatically the government budget should go to surplus, right? Less need for government spending and more tax revenue coming in during economic expansions. You can ask Bill Clinton about that. He actually had a surplus a couple of years of his presidency due to really robust economic growth. All right, that's it for this video. We'll pick it up with some practice next time. Be good, guys.